Hey guys, this is Anthony Vilhauer checking in with you. Hope this video is finding you well. I'm on spring break from my classes at the Center for Information and Communication Sciences at Ball State University. We've had really a tremendous set of 6 or 7 weeks here at the front end of the semester, and maybe I'm one of those geeks out there, but I decided to keep on reading some extra material that I thought definitely pertained to the specific classes on issues in communication, as well as some consulting work that we're learning. So I was able to read JeffreySTon's book. I have a video about that, and in that book he talks about another little bit older book, but I think a very valuable book and really a tremendous companion to what he has to say. I think his book definitely needs to be read, but I think this book should at least be skimmed if you read his book to kind of give a little bit of a framework to correspond. But I really like what he has written, and I'm not taking anything away from the book I reviewed previously. But this one right here, Enterprise Architecture as Strategy, is a work that is a little bit older. It definitely a little bit more formalized, but it comes by way of some academics and researchers really looking at companies in the past when this was sort of looked at as enterprise architecture, and they don't necessarily get into specifics of artificial intelligence or cloud-based computing or some of the blockchain technology that we're seeing today. They really don't talk about that because, to be honest, this was a little bit different time period and probably predated some of the technology that's more mainstream today. In fact, they really don't get into a lot of technology. They get into an understanding of looking at an organization and understanding the architecture that may need to be built or may need to be modified around it, or a strategy that may need to be developed or enhanced to go forward. So that's still pretty general terms, and something that even to me, when I was reading the introduction and reading up on this book through the reviews, I was like, what value does this book really have? Is this just going to be a dry read that I'm not going to gain anything from, or is it going to be hard to parse really what is going on here? But I think one of the values up front to reading this book is the authors focus on a need to start to have your senior management debate an operating model. They say, listen, if you're going to have an organization, don't send people off into a back room and have a bunch of complex charts developed that describe your organization from an IT perspective. Put your senior management into a room and have them debate the operating model, where you're at and what you should be doing going forward, or what you would like to be doing going forward. Meaning that the operating model isn't something that can so easily be charted out on a piece of paper and then put on a shelf and almost forgotten, and really left with people who are probably doing a good work, but really left with them. That this has to be a part of the air, so to speak, or the breadth of management that really brings management to be true managers and leaders in the organization. And so there has to be a lively debate around it. And I found those words actually very comforting, because then it takes it out of the pages of books and diagrams, and it puts it squarely in the realm of people where IT really should be, regardless of how technical we get. But here are some key things that I think are very interesting, and I'll read from page 27. Define your operating model is the chapter. They say an operating model has two dimensions: business process standardization and integration. Two two dimensions: business process standardization and integration. Executives need to recognize standardization and integration are two separate decisions. First, standardization of business processes and related systems means defining exactly how a process will be executed, regardless of who is performing the process or where it's completed. So they say, listen, this is not even two sides to a coin, this is two dimensions. If it was two sides to a coin, we'd really almost be talking about one dimension. But they're saying, listen, it's a bit more robust than this. Let's look at some process standardization so that things that are done time and time again, we can rely on that. And I'm going to come back to that very, very quickly because I think that has some very internal implications. We think of that as external for customers in a lot of organizations, but I want to touch base with that a little later here. They go on to say that there is a challenge with standard processes because once you standardize something, there can be a tightening on innovation. So there is a negative to that has to be addressed. Integration links the efforts of organizational units through shared data. Now, here's the biggest challenge that they say of integration. Usually is around data. End-to-end integration requires companies to develop standard definitions and formats for data that will be shared across business units or functions. For business units to share customer information, they must agree on its format. Similarly, they must share a common definition for terms like sale, which can be said to occur when a contract is signed, when money is paid, and when product is delivered. These can be difficult, time-consuming decisions because the data is really going to have to be useful if you're going to start integrating it across different business units and different siloed areas if it is a fairly siloed organization. But getting back to the standardization, I want to look at that more from an internal perspective and talk about something real quick that I have read from Edward Deming. Not Edward Deming, W. Edwards Deming. And he talks about how it's very important to address not just the bottom line efficiency, but to address variation. And I think especially internally, when we're serving internal customers, so to speak, where there's large organizations and you know that your product is mainly to another unit or to another area, that this is where standardization is very important. Not from the standpoint of, well, we got it standardized and this is fixed, right? That we can say, like, boy, that's it, end of story, absolutely got it right. What I think is important is the value that it provides. It provides a value because there is less variation, meaning I can count on it. Like Deming said in his book, he said, Americans, when he was writing the book, it's an older book, he said Americans had trouble dealing with Japanese companies because they were always just trying to lowball them. Get in there, get the price low, get the bid, get the business, right? But Japanese organizations were looking at a long-term relationship with less suppliers, less people to deal with, and they were really wanting them to be more internally minded to them. Why was that? It was so that their variability would be reduced or diminished. And I think that's a function of how standardization and integration really needs to be looked at. We have massive organizations that, yes, serve massive people from the outside, but we also have to understand that there is integration and standardization that reduces or should reduce variability to a product or a service internally so that people internally can count on each other going forward. We're not just saying, hey, man, they do whatever they want to do and who knows what's going to happen. And a focus on quality in that direction, I think, will serve our organizations very well. That's my 2 cents, and I'm hoping to have a good spring break. Appreciate those of you for listening.